Well, if you are a wine connoisseur or wanting to become a wine connoisseur, just lover of wine, you're going to love this episode as I interview Agent Cru out of California, Napa Valley, as we talk about his company Wine Spies and just the wine industry in general. It's going to be fun, and I hope you will strap in and tune in and have fun on today's episode of the Finally Marketing That Works podcast. Well, hello and welcome to another edition of the Finally Marketing That Works podcast. I'm your host, Mitchell Slater. I'm here with a new friend out of California, Agent Cru. Agent, how you doing today, sir?
I'm good. How's it going?
Dude, man, super good. Still in Alaska visiting family, and I know you're just in beautiful, beautiful California. Whereabouts in California are you?
Well, I'm sitting here in our headquarters in Petaluma, which is kind of I would say, the hippest part of Sonoma County. If you guys haven't been out to wine country, Sonoma is right next to Napa County.
Okay, man. And I was just there. My wife and I, we drove a truck and trailer from Florida up to Alaska, skipped Canada because they were still closed, but we drove through Napa Valley and a state park there in Napa, and that was one of our favorite places. Even though we didn't have full hookups, the backyard of if you'd say of the campground was a vineyard we just got to look at in the mountains. And then we went to now of course I'm spacing the name of the winery we went to. It was the only one that you could just walk in. Other ones had reservations and they were all booked. It was something with an S. Whatever.
Saint Supri? There are so many wineries. It's insane. Well, I live in the Sonoma Valley, which is just directly over on the other side of the hill there in the town of Kenwood. And I mean, it's just all vineyards as far as I can see. It's beautiful. What can I say? I'm not complaining.
That's awesome. It is it's a different beauty that I feel like you have to experience to really appreciate it, I guess. So I grew up, backstory on me. So my family, we had muscadine grapevines when we lived in Florida, way back in the day. So my parents learned how to make wine, and we learned how to make it as young kids. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a beautiful thing. We only had 36 vines. We didn't have a lot, but it was enough to make wine. We made fruit leathers and juice and jelly and all these different things. So then my family moved to Alaska when I was a little kid, and obviously, we didn't do any grapes anymore. But then they made dandelion wine one time, and I don't even know if they liked it or not. They made dandelion wine. I think they've done rhubarb wine. So I've been around it a little bit. Definitely don't know a ton about it, but it's very intriguing, just the wine industry in general. I wouldn't say I'm a wine connoisseur.
Hey, all you need is sugar, man. You could take some sugar and Welch's grape juice, and that'll turn into wine.
And I wouldn't even say I'm a wine connoisseur, but I will say, and I want you to try this, Agent, if you haven't. There's a wine company out of Homer, Alaska, called Bear Creek Winery, and it is by far my favorite wine. They use a lot of Alaska berries and everything, and my favorite that they make is called the Peach Apricot. It is just delicious, super sweet wine. And I'm a very sweet wine fan, so I'm not into reds, since I'm I guess a wimpy wine drinker, and you're probably your terms, right?
I mean, honestly, I really believe whatever you like is all good. I mean, to each their own. My number one problem with people's attitude towards wine is when they try to, yuck other people's yum. So, if peach apricot is your jam, then all the more power to you, brother.
Well, thanks. What is your favorite wine if you had to pick? You had any day?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I like them not sweet, but I like the big, juicy, jammy ones myself. I'm kind of a Zinfandel guy. So out here in Sonoma, we do some really good Zins. Dry Creek Valley is kind of the home of the big Zinfandel, the big boozy fruit bomb. So I'm definitely into that. But I do like a very nice cab. Red blends are really, my family's winery is called Deerfield Ranch Winery. It's out in the Sonoma Valley there. And my uncle, he pretty much specializes in blends. So I really kind of came up with that philosophy. When you think about it, it's kind of like, cooking. You don't really cook with one ingredient. Even just adding a dash of salt is the bare minimum. So with wine, it's kind of the same thing. You can really mix and match to end up with a much better wine at the end of the day. All the different varietals kind of are their own flavors and profiles of where it hits the palate. So that's kind of my philosophy.
And I noticed obviously there's different price ranges for wine. And so, I tend to just, if I want some wine, and I don't drink very often, but I would buy the cheapest one typically because I'm like, oh, I just enjoy that taste. And there's a store, I'm sure you've heard of it because they're in California too, is Aldi. And they have their own, it's a grocery store, and they have their own brand of wine called Winking Owl. And when I buy it in Florida, it's literally $2.97 is what the bottle of wine is. And I'll just buy that. And I think it's delicious. But what differentiates a $3 bottle of wine to, let's say, $1,000 or $2,500 bottle of wine? Like where does that come from, and why do people pay that over a cheap one?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it really comes down to the cost of the grapes, and the scale of the production. So, and again, more power to you. I mean, the Winking Owl kind of reminds me of Night Train, which was super popular back in the 70s. Same thing, grocery store, but they made a ton of it. And I would put the emphasis on, they make a ton of it. So, when you get to very large scales of production, the process becomes very, very different. You're dealing with truckloads of grapes, all kinds of stuff gets in there. It all gets thrown in the fermenter. There's no sorting process whatsoever. And then the grapes come from all over the place. So, we're talking massive vineyards up and down the Central Valley in California is where most of it comes from. That kind of wine comes from out here. And it's just trucked in from all over the place. So, when you start to get into more expensive bottles of wine, and I'm not even talking about like, $100 bottles. I'm talking about like $20 bottles. Already you're starting to get into a different world where you're talking about wines that are typically made from, a particular geographical area and that have a kind of character to them because they're from that place. And then typically they're starting to be produced at somewhat smaller scales where the winemakers can actually pay attention to individual lots of wine. And it's much less of kind of a commodity where you're just making, wine, and you're kind of making a more of a product with some attention to detail. It's not just wine. So, and also these days there's a lot of additives and whatnot that people can put in wine. And that's actually, I mean, they can make kind of more consistently good wine at the lower price points. You can go to Trader Joe's, and get a pretty decent bottle of wine for $5, but it's just going to have a very generic character because, they've literally added some basically flavorings to make it taste like blackberries kind of thing.
Okay. Man.
Yeah. But what I would stress is like, there's kind of all up and down the price range. There's really, there's something out there for everybody. And so, Wine Spies, which I'm the CEO of Wine Spies, and we're an internet flash sale site. So we sell one different wine every 24 hours at a crazy, crazy price. So, if it's a $50 wine, we're selling it for 25. If it's a $100 wine, we're selling it for $40 maybe. And so up and down that price point scale, yeah, you'll definitely notice varying levels of quality. And it's one of those things where, without yucking your yum, you will find, I guarantee you that if I started drinking some wine with you and started pouring you a few sips, you'd be like, okay. Like I see where you're going with this. I kind of like this one more than that one. And it's not about being snobby, but your taste might change over time to where you are starting to see, okay, now I see what this, this $25 bottle is all about,
Okay. And I would be curious to try that one day just because I'm one of those ones going, do they really know the difference? Are they just saying, oh, it's $100 and it's, fancy? Because I have no idea. I just not in that circle at all, but do enjoy a good, like you said, Zinfandel. I enjoy those. Those are good. But it does.
Well, I would say like, and it's a somewhat unpopular opinion from the professional side, but I would kind of say that roughly, there's a massive difference between the quality that anybody with a slightly experienced palate, a $5 wine up to, I would say, about a $40 wine. I would argue that after $40, you can essentially find a wine of that quality somewhere. it doesn't mean it's like super easy to find, but there, you can get essentially the finest wine for that. And there's a lot to do with just brand name and esteem. But that being said, I mean, for those $100 wines, I mean, they ought to deliver on something. And it's not totally subjective. Like if you buy that $100 bottle, you're expecting a certain type of flavor, a certain type of quality. And if you don't get that, you're like, oh, well, you know, I got gypped. So at Wine Spies, you know, that's like our number one thing. I mean, we taste literally thousands of wines a year, and we only bring you one wine every day. So, you know, we're very choosy, and we probably reject, you know, 19 bottles for every one that we end up going with. So
Wow.
we kiss a lot of frogs to find the prince on your behalf.
Oh my gosh. I kind of thought when I first was reading up on you, and I was like, a new wine every day that they're talking about with this deal. I'm like, won't they run out of wine eventually, or run out of wine bottle? Like going,
Yeah.
Better restart. Got to do the same one on February 1st next year, you know. But I'm guessing there's an endless amount of wines that you can feature every day then.
I think there's something like, you know, 4,200 licensed wineries in Napa and Sonoma alone. So you can imagine how many actual wines there are. And that's just in, you know, that's just in one area in California. So, and we sell wine from all over the world. So yeah, there's no end of good wines out there, but we do actually do quite a bit of legwork to find ones that we can sell at crazy prices that still have the quality. You know, that's the hard part.
Man, there's a store down in Florida, and I know they have multiple chains, and of course I'm spacing the name now, but it's like a wine supermarket where it's gosh, I can't believe I can't spacing the name.
Florida. Is it Specs? I mean, Specs is Texas.
No, it's wine's in the name. It's wine.
I should know that.
Wine something or something wine. And I walked in one time because I was wanting to find that Homer Alaska wine, and it wasn't in there. But I walked in, I was just like, a warehouse for just wine, and it was just thousands of different kinds.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable, and I didn't have what I wanted, which I was like, what? How do you not, with all these wines, not have what I'm looking for?
Yeah, well, that just goes to show you how much there is. Thousands and thousands of different bottles, and they don't have the one you're looking for. Yeah, I mean, Specs in Texas is like that. I mean, it's like the size of a freaking Walmart, but it's just wine.
Jeez. And so for Wine Spies, I mean, how do you guys go about marketing that? And if you had some successes and some flops on like trying to get the word out about it, and kind of what does that world look like for you?
Yeah, Wine Spies has had a really interesting journey, and it's kind of really an interesting marketing case study. We were founded in 2007, so we've actually been around for, you know, nearly 15 years now. And at the beginning, so we're exclusively e-commerce, so everything's been built online from the start. At the beginning, really what we did was the wineries that we partnered with, we had encouraged them to send an email to their audience promoting the deal. And that was, you know, early on pretty effective, and that's how we initially had built the audience. Over time, you know, as people got more sensitive about email promotion, I mean, this is 2007, you know?
Yeah.
So we essentially kind of had reached a plateau where, you know, we'd kind of, the wineries were less inclined to send out that email. And then we were in a position where we kind of had a nice little audience, and we're a little bit resting on our laurels. So what we did to, you know, and so in the past 3 years, I mean, we've experienced just explosive growth. And a lot of that is due to some key hires, excellent marketing talent. But really what I've come to appreciate is it's all about just the fundamentals. So excellent copywriting that sells. I mean, if you read our daily deals, we really improve the quality of the writing. And it's not that it's more serious. In fact, it got more playful, more personable, more, you know, authentic gets bandied around a lot. But really, I mean, we try to have our actual, like, it feels like a person's writing it, you know, that's really important, especially with wine, because it's, you know, you really got to, you know, connect. So just improved copywriting. I can't say, you know, I can't understate how much that was important to what we were able to do. But really just in terms of, expanding the audience, it really is, kind of, 2010s, 2021 marketing 101, just creating lots of different ad sets with different messaging, properly doing A/B testing. Same thing with the emails, testing different subject lines. And, it's the kind of thing where if you go to any, growth hacking conference, it's exactly what they tell you to do. And yet where most people fall down is they don't do the hard, boring work of setting up campaigns, on Facebook and watching them like a hawk, and looking for, small wins of like, 3-4% performance of, one campaign over the other. And that's been a huge aspect of it. And that's just kind of the nuts and bolts side of it. For us, we hadn't done a tremendous amount of marketing in the past, so it was, a lot of low hanging fruit. But then, kind of, and I think importantly, on the other hand, we actually did roll out a completely unique feature, which our competitors don't have, called lockers, where essentially you're able to buy 1 or 2 bottles over time and build a case, and then that case will ship for free. So that's a huge game changer for us. So those kinds of wins stack on top of each other. So you've got a killer feature, which is unique, and we had spent the time innovating around that, and then also just kind of getting back to basics in terms of growing your audience. And I just won't understand. Again, I won't. Very simple things, creating excellent sales funnels from, that first touch all the way through to the conversion. Now customer journeys really are the focus. Trying to create nice flows for people all the way through with subtle nudges. It's all stuff that you'll hear at any growth hacking seminar. And you're like, yeah, I know all these things, but do you actually take the time to do them and do them well? So that's crucial. And to stop me if I'm going on.
You're good.
Let's see here. And then, so this year's a huge year for us. Like, actually, it's crazy timing to be talking with you, because next month we're rolling out a brand new version of the site we've been working on for over 15 months. And we're rolling out with a huge marketing campaign. It's got, a little bit of, so we actually invested in a really high-end production commercial, which is badass. We're so excited to put it out there. We worked with Chamber Media on it. It's hilarious. We got like a proper action video commercial for, because we're the Wine Spies, right? We got fight scenes, bottles getting broken over people's heads. It's pretty sweet. So we're rolling that out along with the announcement of the new version of the site and a crazy new feature called Vault. The Vault, where you can basically buy a bottle of wine for $20 and you never know what it's going to be. It'll be worth at least $20, but it could be worth $1,000. You never know.
I love that. And all that launches when?
That's August 2nd. So coming up shortly here. And that whole thing is also, we're combining that with what we're calling our next generation launch party. So it's 2 full weeks of just insane deals like we've never done before. And then a lot of those, frankly, some of that's just sheer marketing for promotion. We're taking like even slimmer margins than we normally do. So we're bringing some stupid prices out. So that's 2 weeks starting August 2nd. So it's definitely going to be worth checking out, because there's going to be some great scores on there.
Oh my goodness. So is this one of the best ways to probably, obviously your family has a winery, but getting into wine this way, instead of trying to just depend on selling your own wine, is this probably a better way to make a profit in this industry? Because I've heard it's cutthroat and it's hard. I've always heard it's hard to make profit in wine. Is that true? And if so, why is that the case for that? I've heard that all the time.
Yeah, so whenever anyone asks me about getting into the wine industry, my very first advice is don't. Because it is absolutely the case. There's a really just popular and famous idiom in the wine industry, where it's just, how do you make a small fortune in the wine industry? Start with a large fortune. Because it's the reason is simple. Wine is hard to make and expensive. It's an agricultural product, so there's risk and there's a lot of variation from year to year, and that adds to the cost of production. And then there's a ton of competition. So, between, it being a very crowded space and it already being, a kind of a low margin product, it's extremely difficult. And, frankly, there's also a lot of money in the industry because it's a glamorous industry. And so there's quite a few wineries that are well capitalized from essentially, being hobby projects or pet projects with, people that have unlimited resources. And that makes it quite challenging for a small winery that is not in that situation to compete. So that's all, it's all very, very hard for those reasons. And, what I typically feel like is, hey, if you're a smart, talented person in anything, if you're in hospitality, if you're a chemist and you want to work in the lab, at the wine lab, like if you're a competent business person, take those talents and spend them elsewhere. You will make more money if that is your goal, but, yeah, Wine Spies is a super interesting niche. My favorite part about it is that when you're working at a specific winery, you're drinking the same wine all the time. You're telling the same story. For Wine Spies, though, we're literally, drinking 30 different wines a week from all over the world. So it's super fun to get to know about all those. And then our wine buyer, Agent Noir, is truly, I mean, this guy is just so knowledgeable. He's such a pro. So he educates me all the time. And I've just learned such a great deal about the wines of the world. So that's been a ton of fun. And yeah, I mean, it's a good little niche business. It's challenging to continuously source and find the good deals. And if you look at our site, we do a huge amount of writing every single day for every single sale. So, it's kind of, it's a constant workflow in that way. But yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, I found the perfect spot. And also we have tons of fun. I mean, you should see our armory. We've got a Nerf gun collection that's like, it's impressive.
No, and I love that niche that you have, because I've always heard that about wine, where it's expensive to get into it, but it looks so glamorous though, Agent. Like when I go by, I'm like, well, look at these mansion houses and beautiful. They have acres and acres of land in Napa Valley. Where does all that come from? Are they all just millionaires to buy in and they lose money every year on this winery then?
Quite often the new entrants, yes, that is the case, and they're often, so either, when the wine industry out here has changed dramatically in the past 50 years. So in the 1970s, you could buy land in Napa, and if you did, good for you, because it is worth a lot of money. Same with Sonoma. So and Sonoma has kind of always been a little bit of the stepchild to Napa. That's people aren't quite appreciative of, but that's changed dramatically in the past 20 years. And so Sonoma has been, for better or worse, really catching up quite quickly in terms of property values, cost of wine, cost of grapes, all that. So and just status as a tourist designation, as a tourist destination. So yeah, it's either your family's been established for decades, or you're a new entrant that had really deep pockets coming into the industry. There's not really secret option C. Now also, well, I should say there's also been a ton of consolidation in the wine industry. So there's it's very corporate now. So the big wine companies themselves are, they have really deep pockets, and they're able to operate with economies of scale, and they're able to kind of cross market and pollinate, cross pollinate their brands in that way. Also, because they're much larger, they've got a lot more clout with distributors, and really that's where the money's to be made. If you can push the brand nationally and be in restaurants all over the country, be in stores all over the country, okay, well, now you're making money.
Okay. And is your goal long term, is you have this family winery, are you wanting to take over the family winery one day, or do you kind of just want to do your Wine Spies and kind of not be in the wine, like actual wine making world?
Well, that's funny you should ask that, actually. I mean, I worked for my family's winery for 10 years. I actually was the general manager of the winery by the time I left. And well, let me put it this way. Yeah, maybe like it's like many people, I kind of view the family winery as maybe when I get that large fortune, maybe I'll turn it back into a small one, you know. It really is, it has to be a passion project. It has to be a labor of love. It is so much, it's not just, you know, it's not just the amount of work. It's just, there's, I mean, my uncle who's the winemaker, I mean, he'll either be, you know, he's answering emails at 4 in the morning so that he can get up and fix the tractor so that it's ready in time for harvesting in the morning, and then, you know, do the winemaking thing all day, and then, you know, make sure he's handling VIP groups in the afternoon in the cave. So it's just, and that's every day, for what I would, you know, for, you know, for making a living kind of thing, you know. So it's tough for sure. So maybe one day I'll be back over at Deerfield, but for now, Wine Spies, baby, we're blowing up, and it feels great. The team is so fun, so awesome to work with. It's so exciting what we've got going on, and you know, it's honestly, we're just at the beginning of something great. So we're possibly going to launch Spirit Spies in the future. Again, we're rolling out the brand new version of the site with some crazy new features that nobody else has, and I just think there's going to be a lot of excitement from the wine world for Wine Spies. This building I'm sitting in, we just recently purchased a new headquarters in Petaluma. We're just remodeling the upstairs offices right now, so there's just like a little temporary downstairs space, but it's going to be really cool. And we're trying to turn it into kind of a landmark. One day you'll be able to come in and sit in like a 1960s style Archer spy lounge and drink some wine. So
sweet. Well, you know, Agent, I'm so excited and stoked for you in this launch in August. And this now Spirit Spies may be coming later. That is exciting. You guys got a lot happening for you. So huge congratulations. As we wrap up, I'd love you to, if you have a nugget or two you want to share with people before if they're listening and maybe they want to start a winery, they have a winery, or just a regular business person, if there was some type of advice that you would want to give them, one or two or three things, what would that be?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to start a winery, again, don't. You know what the best thing to do if you're super passionate about wine is? Drink it. In terms of, and again, just in terms of, you know, marketing and building a business, my two pieces of advice are just get back to the basics and do the hard work, do the boring work. Don't spend a ton of time, you know, on the brand development and getting every little thing right. I mean, I think a lot of people really enjoy the planning part of the process, which is great. I'm a huge fan of planning, but make sure that you don't skip that execution phase. That's the most important part. And if you're going to balance your time, balance it on the actual execution phase and not on the planning phase. Do more things. And then I guess I would just say, you know, I really think one of the secrets of our success has been building a great team. You know, I really like it when people show up stoked to work. I actually believe that happy people are productive people. And, you know, that means paying them well, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, you know, create a Silicon Valley office where there's, you know, free sandwiches and whatnot. It just means that, you know, people like, it's fun. I mean, fun, and also success breeds success. So get yourself a little bit of success and then build on it.
Love it, man. Well, obviously you've mentioned it already. If people want to get in touch with you, they need to go to winespies.com, right?
Heck yeah, man. Winespies.com, where it's at, you know, and it's actually a great place to dip your toe in the water of the wine world, because we got great deals. So if you've never had some wines, we only sell wines that you love. So pick up any bottle, and that's a great place to start. And if you're an experienced wine drinker, I mean, you'll be very happy you found us, because your expensive drinking habit just got more affordable. So
see, you're there helping people every day. That's perfect.
Absolutely. That's what I try to do. Give them a little bit of liquid love.
Well, Agent, thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy. You got a huge business and you're growing, but thank you for giving some time today to talk to the listeners and to me. I enjoyed it, and I'd love to get together with you sometime there in California and drink some wine together.
Yeah, come on out and see me. Come down to Wine Spies headquarters, man. It's been a real pleasure, Mitchell. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Well, if you didn't know anything about wine before this episode, hopefully you were able to leave with at least one, two, or maybe even three things after this episode. It is a vast industry from all over the world, people making wine and selling it. And I learned a lot, and I had a lot of fun in this episode. And I've always been very interested in that industry and just how it works. You think about all these different kinds of wines, styles of wine, and people like sweet wines and not sweet wines. And my goodness, it just goes on and on for all the different styles that I don't even know about. But I enjoyed it, and I have a lot of respect for that industry. So I hope if you are tuning in and you were interested in wine, you learned a lot from that and were able to maybe use some of those tips to your own business. Or maybe you have a winery and you're looking for tips and you were able to learn from Agent Cru. And maybe you just tuned in, you're like, man, I really want a bottle of wine. Well, you can get a sweet, cheap bottle every day, a new one on their website, winespies.com. So we're going to have more fun guests just like this. So tune in every week on the Finally Marketing That Works podcast. We'll see you then. Thank you.